He's not here, but Stephen Longfellow Fisk is a friend of mine. We've been friends for a long time. He's the head of an organization called Unity and Diversity Council out of Los Angeles. And he's traveled around the world and sung in Israel and other places and does wonderful work for peace. And it was from listening to his song that I created the title. In case you wondered which came first, the chicken or the egg, it was Stephen and then me. But if you could capture the words of the song, they said a few things. Before I go to that, I want to first thank the choir. And I would have had you all sing if I'd gotten the words and the arrangement and everything, because I much prefer you all singing. And I thank Charlie for him leading the service through this point, and all of you for inviting me back. Part of the words that Stephen just sang is, why are we all still so far apart? Why can't we find a way to sew if we can build bridges of love? Now, he wrote the song quite a while ago, but it seems so right on for right now. A few things happening, which I'm sure you're all aware. We all like to be able to hide, but we can't. But they're personal spats that have been put out on TV. I won't mention any names. There have been insults to a very well-qualified Supreme Court nominee that seemed very beneath the group in which she was being questioned. There's war between countries in the world, some of which are on TV and others which are not. But what has been on my mind because of the Season for Nonviolence is it's been 54 years since Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. died. April the 4th, which is tomorrow, was the date he was assassinated. It's been a long time. But it's been 58 years since the passage of the Civil Rights Act. And as someone who helped, I was young, but still working toward things like that, I thought we were done. Am I crazy, or did any of you feel the same way? We thought, don't we think that when we pass acts and constitutional amendments and other things, that that's the way things will be? Wrong. Especially in today's environment, it appears. Now, I truly believe in my heart that all those things in the Civil Rights Act are true and still operational. Amen. And as long as we hold that, we know we can walk forward in that. But the last part of the song that Stephen sang was, but now more than ever, what the world needs more of is to reach out to each other with bridges of love. So before I begin what I'm going to talk about, I'd like you to reach to each other and show love to whoever you're sitting next to, and whoever is behind you and in front of you. Yes. And I say that, thank you. I say that because I've been to church many times, and sometimes you're sitting there and you've come in and you've been greeted, but while you're there, you don't necessarily feel connected. So I want you all to feel connected to each other. The music has made us feel like that. The words and the things said have made us look at this. But I want us to be connected right now. And those on Zoom, if you're with somebody, hug them. Now, last week, your speaker is John Seeley, and he spoke about engagement around climate, democracy, the planet, and the church. So I'm going to continue, not in those same things, but we're going to talk about engagement in the world around this elusive thing of peace, love, and humanity. And I'm also going to talk about how we honor the season for nonviolence and introduce it to some of you who may not know about the season. It was called the Gandhi King Season for Nonviolence. That goes from January 30th through April the 4th. It's an international educational program dedicated to promoting nonviolence as a powerful way to heal, transform, and empower our lives and our communities. It began in 1998, and it was inspired by the 50th anniversary of Gandhi's assassination and the 30th anniversary of Dr. King's assassination. And I know how it was started and when it was started. And the Association for Global New Thought was having conversations about how do we honor Gandhi, because it was 50 years and, you know, somehow 25, 50, and 100 are always important dates. So they were trying to figure out how do we honor Gandhi. And Reverend Michael, who was the head of the organization, said, you know, I just realized it's going to be the 30th anniversary for Dr. King. So they put their heads together to figure out how do we do this. They didn't want a party. They didn't want to talk about all the things that were issues. And they decided to honor what they stood for. And what do they both stand for? Nonviolence. And that's what it became. The season for nonviolence, so that in those 64 days, each day you could reflect on nonviolence in your life. The first 21 days are dedicated to personal conversation. So they're readings, and what Charlie read earlier is an example of a daily reading. And you read about how can I be nonviolent in my life? Next 21 days, or how can I live with my family and community and express nonviolence? And then the last 21 days, or how can we be more effective in nonviolence in the world? So each year, I've been doing this for 25 years now. And each year it gets better and better. And each year, for many years, I've led meditations every morning on nonviolence. I didn't do it the last 2 years, but I'll probably do it again next year. But it helps to reset us, because we probably, especially in this room, you say, I'm pretty good. I know I'm good. I know I'm loving. I know I'm peaceful. I know I care about people. Look at me, I go to UUC. But when we test it and look at what we may say, do, or feel, and a lot of times, actually, the masks help. Haven't the masks helped during this last couple of years? There are moments that we Our face has become reshaped with words that we want to use. And behind the mask, you can't necessarily see, but the masks are off. And I invite you to take the mask of your heart off, because the only way for us to move to a place of nonviolence is to be it yourself first. You have to start with yourself. So I'm going to quickly go through the 6 principles. This is a whole workshop program. I've done classes that I really love, which I'd be glad to do here, that honor the leaders of the season for nonviolence. It began with King and Gandhi, but it was expanded to honor His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Cesar Chavez, Dolores Huerta, and Nelson Mandela. That's a pretty lofty group of people, all of whom had amazing legacies and amazing actions in the world. And they stood for justice, but they also did it in a place of nonviolence. I talk about that all the time because we can be active. We can be socially active and do works of justice, but we have to have a core principle underneath us doing the work. And I encourage that core to be nonviolence. 6 principles begin with nonviolence as a way of life for courageous people. Why don't you say that with me? Nonviolence is a way of life for courageous people. And it's this positive force that can confront systems of injustice and still stand strong without letting go. And it uses this thing called righteous indignation as a force for good. And it allows people to bring in all of who they are, emotional and social issues and challenges, but it puts it under the umbrella of nonviolence. As I've looked at the world of the last 5 or 10 years, there have been so many places that I wish were practicing nonviolence. There are some groups that clearly don't seem to even know what nonviolence is. But we can have arguments, we can disagree. We can agree about different ways to approach things. But if we were to take up this banner of nonviolence, we could make it work. I take you back to Nelson Mandela, who helped to change an entire country. A man who was in jail for 26 years, and it was okay for him to come out and say, I'm standing in peace, and I want to cross the governmental conversation with people that may not like me, believe in me, or care for me. But I'm going to do it from a place of a peaceful heart. If he can do it, you can do it. 26 years in jail. The second principle of nonviolence is a phrase you've heard. It's called the beloved community is the framework for the future. Let's say that together. The beloved community is the framework for the future. And what that gives you, it's aspirational, and it says to raise the bar of who we are. I see the beloved community in here. I know that's what you work for. I know that's what you aspire to. And everyone is welcome. And my only little nudge is everyone may not know they're welcome. You hear not a message of discipline, but a message of understanding. It's part of the work that I've done in diversity, equity, and inclusion. People often don't know what they're not doing. And sometimes they don't know what they are doing. And so we have a mirror that is put up to reflect, well, this is how it may feel for you, how it may land for you, the way you're treating someone. But you may have to step off of your side and sit on the other side to see how it lands for them. And when you begin with this place of the beloved community, just saying it makes it better. And if you stand in that place of the ideals behind the beloved community, you can do nothing but go right. And it's where justice prevails, and that everyone is given the opportunity to attain their full human potential. We have a long way to go, don't we? The beloved community is beyond just singing together. It's good, it's a good start, but it requires that we stand forth. That's what these people did. The ones we're honoring, the ones we talked about for 64 days. Cesar Chavez, I love his work. They had an expectation of just decent conditions for people who were working in the farms. A place to sleep, a place to eat, food, water. Just minor things to most of us, but something that wasn't given easily at the time that they were having to have that conversation. And dear Dolores Huerta, who is, you know, right from this area, right by him, right with him, who was the nudge from my readings of her work and having met her. She was not a quiet nudge. Have any of you met and heard the work of Dolores Huerta? Just a powerful presence. So she helped to build a beloved community in everything they were doing with the farm workers, but there was power with it. The third principle is attack forces of evil, not persons doing evil. Let's say that. Attack forces of evil, not persons doing evil. Now, you probably need to take a breath with this one, because there's a few people that we want to go after, we talk about going after, no matter how pleasant and loving you are. There's still conversation on a national level, on a political level, of attacking people. And it's what makes, to me, the current political atmosphere so uncomfortable, because they keep attacking people. There are 3-year-olds that act better than our Congress and Senate. Because the 3-year-olds have been taught, you don't treat your sister or brother that way. There's a place of respect. It's a simple concept. Attack forces of evil, not people doing evil. And the nonviolent approach says to go and find the underlying fundamental conditions, policies, and practices. Now that's what the whole conversation is about in the corporate world and in the political world. that there are a lot of things that we don't talk about that actually exist. There are challenges in our world that we're dealing with. And if you don't go and look at the systemic issues underneath them, then you're in trouble. There's systemic issues underlying all these situations. And it's up to us to understand what they are. The fourth, it's going pretty fast. I won't ask if you have any questions, but afterwards I will. This is a tough one. Accept suffering without retaliation for the sake of the cause to achieve the goal. Let's say it together. Accept suffering without retaliation for the sake of the cause to achieve the goal. Let's take a breath with that. To me, this is one of the hardest parts of nonviolence, because it's the part that when people are marching for justice, speaking up for justice, and somebody hits you upside the head with a billy club, or they ride next to you with a horse and run you over, or if you're on the bridge and the police come after you and knock you down. Because they followed these principles is why they didn't get up fighting. They accepted the suffering. They're people that you have applauded and you wondered why. And they say it's nonviolence, but if you don't know the detail underneath, it's hard to understand the actions. I've had the opportunity of being a part of James Lawson's work. He's a writer, a teacher of nonviolence. And in the work that was done in Birmingham and at the civil rights counters, he was the minister portrayed in many films, like The Butler and the Bridge movies and other things. He was the minister that taught the students from the colleges in the area how not to fight back. He's been a long history, and he's the one that invited Dr. King to come to Memphis. So this is a man, Dr. Lawson is now like 88 or 89, but extremely articulate and amazing. And we asked him, how did you do it? He said, because we have these principles. These are the principles we agreed upon. These are the principles of Gandhi, of King, and they work. And if you're all abiding by them, they make a difference. But he said, this is definitely the hardest one because they had young people there. Now, how many young people do you know now that if you push them even, you can't even tweet them something bad without them wanting to retaliate? There's an energy in the world now that says, I'm going to stand up for what's right for me, and you have no right to say anything to me, or I will attack you back. It's an energy that we have to change. It's an expectation that is violent. And we haven't been teaching nonviolence well enough in the last generation. I see it on TV, I see it on even the things they do that they're playing. But young people are unfortunately learning that it's okay. It's almost more of a game to get back at you. But accepting suffering without retaliating has been what leaders have done throughout the ages. It's not been easy, but you stand in the wholeness of who you are. You stand in the knowledge of who you are and the strength of who you are and the faith that you have, that your life is beyond what you're doing right here, that what you can do for the world is beyond your pain and suffering. And that if you stand for these goals of nonviolence, we're standing for a higher cause. It doesn't matter what you choose the cause to be. Once you agree, let's move forward together. The last two are interesting. The fifth one is avoid internal violence of the spirit, as well as external physical violence. Let's say that. Avoid internal violence of the spirit, as well as external physical violence. Did I hear a woo from the back? Yes. This touches everything in all campaigns, it says. It provides a mirror type of reflection of the reality of the condition to one's opponent and the community at large. And you have to design specific activities to keep the spirit high and the morale high. So they're not saying this is easy to do. They're not saying, well, just read it, you'll get it, let's move forward. We have to embody these. We have to honor them. We have to have them as a part of our life. And I love doing this every year for the 64 days so I can go through the rest of the year and the beginning of the year, living my life from a place of nonviolence. But don't you love avoid internal violence of the spirit? Now, you may not want to use the word spirit, but internal violence of the mind is just as bad. Internal violence of our thoughts, internal violence of our feelings. That's actually what gets us in trouble most of the time. If we were thinking, we may not act the way we do. But most of the issues we have, most of the court drama we have, is because our feelings have been hurt. And there's something that you want to get even about. Think back to your issues in your life. Where have most of them landed? With a spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, sister or brother, a teacher. I know everyone in this room, if I were to have you close your eyes and say, was there ever a teacher or parent that said something to you that hurt your feelings? You probably all nod. Was there a sister or brother or a good friend who betrayed you? Was there somebody you trusted that said something about you that wasn't true? In case you wonder what internal violence of the spirit means. Because just me asking the question, I know you've recalled something. It's still there. So part of the season, we wind up doing exercises and programs that help you rid where it's landed. because we don't just live in an intellectual world, as much as we like to think of it. We're not just up here thinking and, there's so many policies and new thought, or I shouldn't say policies, but beliefs that say, your mind, change your thinking, change your mind. If you know how to think properly, you'll be fine. But it's only half the story. Because our hearts are involved in almost everything. And there are organizations that have really acknowledged this and accepted it, that even though we have a mind and use our mind, our heart is really the director of most of what we do. Let's take a breath. Breathe in, hold it, breathe out. Just want you to think about something that you were upset about. And this is homework. Go home and look at 3 things that have bothered you or annoyed you in the last year. And then connect it to, what was it that bothered me? Did it hurt inside? Or was it just a thought? And most of the time you'll find it's something that really hurt you because it's something that somebody said or did or behaved in a certain way. Or you lost someone. And then the last level, the last principle of nonviolence is the universe is on the side of justice. Let's say that. The universe is on the side of justice. The truth is that the universe, universal and human society, is oriented to the just sense of order of the universe. So you know that from science. This is an orderly world. Things will come back to a status and place of equilibrium all the time. Justice is from that place of equilibrium. If we're out of order, nature and the world will correct it. It may not do it in our time, but it'll do it. It will make changes. And I invite you all to become practitioners in nonviolence, to bring new moral concepts. I know who you are in UUC. This is part of what you do. To uphold a standard that brings moral courage to what you're doing. One of your leaders in UUC, Reverend Susan Frederick Gray, wrote, "Living in times of heartbreak, violence, and pain, and we need communities that remind us of our humanity." So I'm going to end with a couple of phrases. I'm going to ask you, what dream of peace and love do you hold for humanity? What is your dream, your vision? Because in addition to what I totally embrace all the time, which is nonviolence and this idea of love and peace, I look at vision. We have to have a dream. We have to have a vision. It's what I think about with Dr. King. It's not the "I have a dream" speech, but it is him giving us his vision. And it's not that we're here to live his vision, but we're here to live the vision that you have been given. What is your vision? Consider love as an act of humanity and humility. It's literally impossible to face those who are violent toward you with a sense of pride, arrogance, or superiority and still be nonviolent. But there's no love in that. The attitude or behavior is only ego. When we're in our ego, we're always judging others against our standards. Judging others always comes with moral violence and superiority, never love. Love with humility always demands that we see differences with others as opinions, not as right or wrong or truths versus untruths. It's an important distinction that makes all the difference in the world to one practicing nonviolence. The only right or wrong is whether we express our differences with nonviolence or violence. Love with humility demands that the one practicing nonviolence sees those who use violence against others as deeply wounded themselves and needing healing that only nonviolence can bring. I really want to emphasize that because often those who profess nonviolence get riled up when they see one hurting another. We have a worldly situation of Ukraine right now. And so many people keep praying for Ukraine. I ask you, I invite you, I implore you to pray for Russia and Ukraine, because Russia is in need of healing. When there was 9/11, we were praying for those who were hurt. But in the work that I was doing, Dr. Michael, we prayed for those who were in other countries, because most of them had not done anything wrong. There were actors who were doing things that are wrong. So don't leave out entire villages, counties, states, and countries when you're praying. Pray for those who are wronged and those who are doing what's wrong. If you are living from a place of nonviolence, you must invite your own humility, humanity, love, and peace into the act. And I'll end with a phrase from Gandhi: love is the strongest force the world possesses, and yet is the humblest imaginable. And I invite you to say these words. I'm going to say each day we can pray and hold a vision and say, and then I'd like you to repeat these. I carry the dream. I stand for peace. I build bridges of love. And now I'd like you to say them like you believe them. You can tell the difference. I carry the dream. I stand for peace. I build bridges of love. And so it is. And I leave you with this. Let us close our eyes for the moment and know that these words resonate within our soul. That there's something that has heard me today that may not be in our conscious mind, but I know that it's landed a place. For we are talking about love, peace, humility, understanding, and nonviolence. And these are so in alignment with what we do here at UUC and how we stand in the world, that we open our hearts today to let love in. So I release this word just knowing that we're here together to make a difference in the world. And so it is. Amen. Ashe. Aho.
It is said that the Lord loveth a cheerful giver, but we will accept gifts from grumpy people as well. The greeters will pass among us to receive your contributions this morning. But before they do that, I want to remind you that we support organizations designated by the Social Action Committee with our Change for Change program. And this month's change recipient is Lutheran Family Services, an official resettlement center for refugees. You can make your pledge or donate Change for Change by putting checks and change in the basket, or by sending your checks to the church, or by using the Give link on the church's website.